Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Text 23, Translation and Commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Yada asya nabhyat nalinat aham asam maha atmanaha na avidam sambharan purusha anayavan rite yadasya nabhyan nalinad aham asam mahatmanah navidang yagyas sambharan purusha vayavan rite yadasya nabhyan nalinad aham asam mahatmanah navidam yagya sambharan purusha vayavan rite.
aham asam mahatmanah navidam yagya samhara purusha vayavan rite yadasya nabhyan nalinad aham asam mahatmanah navidam yagya samhara purusha vayavan rite yadasya nabhyan nalinad aham asam mahatmanah navidam yagya samhara purusha vayavan rite
Yadasya nabhyan nalinad aham asam mahatmanah navidam yagya sambharan purusha vayavan rite
Yadasya nabhyan nalinad aham asam mahatmanah navidam yajna sambhara purusha vayavan rite.
Ladies, please. Yada, at the time of, asya, his, nabhyat, from the abdomen, nalinat, from the lotus flower, aham, myself, asam, took my birth, maha, atmanaha, of the great person, na, avidam, did not know, yagya, sacrificial, sambharan, ingredients, purusha, of the Lord, avayavan, personal bodily limbs, rite, except, When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord, Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead. Purport: Lord Brahma, the creator of the cosmic manifestation, is known as Swayambhu, or one who is born without father and mother. The general process is that a living creature is born out of the sex combination of the male father and the female mother. But Brahma, the firstborn living being, is born out of the abdominal lotus flower of the Mahavishnu, plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. The abdominal lotus flower is part of the Lord's bodily limbs, and Brahma is born out of the lotus flower. Therefore, Lord Brahma is also a part of the Lord's body. Brahma, after his appearance in the gigantic hollow of the universe, saw darkness and nothing else. He felt perplexity, and from his heart he was inspired by the Lord to undergo austerity, thereby acquiring the ingredients for sacrificial performances. But there was nothing besides the two of them, namely the personality of Mahavishnu and Brahma himself, born out of the bodily part of the Lord. For sacrificial performances, many ingredients were in need, especially animals. The animal sacrifice is meant not for killing the animal, but for achieving the successful result of the sacrifice. The animal offered in the sacrificial fire is, so to speak, destroyed, but the next moment it is given a new life by dint of the Vedic hymns chanted by the expert priest. When such an expert priest is not available, the animal's sacrifice in the fire of the sacrificial altar is forbidden. Thus Brahma created even the sacrificial ingredients out of the bodily limbs of the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, which means that the cosmic order was created by Brahma himself. Also, nothing is created out of nothing, but everything is created from the person of the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvang pravartate. Everything is made from my bodily limbs, and I am therefore the original source of all creations. The impersonalists argue that there is no use in worshipping the Lord when everything is nothing but the Lord himself. The personalist, however, worships the Lord out of a great sense of gratitude, utilizing the ingredients born out of the bodily limbs of the Lord. The fruits and flowers are available from the body of the earth, and yet Mother Earth is worshipped by the sensible devotee with ingredients born from the earth. Similarly, Mother Ganges is worshipped with the water of the Ganges, and yet the worshipper enjoys the result of such worship. Worship of the Lord is also performed with ingredients born from the bodily limbs of the Lord, and yet the worshipper, who is himself a part of the Lord, achieves the result of devotional service to the Lord. While the impersonalist wrongly concludes that he is the Lord himself, the personalist, out of great gratitude, worships the Lord in devotional service, knowing perfectly well that nothing is different from the Lord. The devotee therefore endeavors to apply everything in the service of the Lord, because he knows that everything is the property of the Lord and that no one can claim anything as one's own. This perfect conception of oneness helps the worshipper in being engaged in his loving service, whereas the impersonalist, being falsely puffed up, remains a non-devotee forever without being recognized by the Lord. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Shreshtam Manomapi Shachiputram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Maturim Goshtavartim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tamnatosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagarna Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Hari Guru Vaishnava Tina Smarane Hoi Bigna Binashan Anayashe Hoi Nijavanchita Puran. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. There's nothing overtly obvious in this verse which would lead us to discuss about the folly of impersonalism. But Srila Prabhupada brings it around to that point. Srila Prabhupada was on a mission. He, in his self-composed pranam mantra, described himself. He saw his mission as delivering the Western countries, giving the message of Lord Chaitanya to the Western countries, and delivering them from impersonalism and voidism. You think, well, that's more in India, isn't it? Impersonalism and voidism. I speculate that Srila Prabhupada's early followers, actually most of them, all of them were, not all of them, but they were influenced by waves of impersonalism coming over from India. It's described in the bio that Prabhupada Lilamrita, I believe, is described there, that people were reading. I've put in my text of this Mood and Mission book also how people were reading Alan Watts. Any of you familiar with Alan Watts? Yeah, still popular. They know Bhagavad Gita because of Alan Watts. Yeah, I read a book of his, a Penguin book on Zen Buddhism. And then there was the Dharma Bums by Jack, what's his name, Kerouac? That was popular. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, in translation, of course, not in Tibetan. And ancient Tibetan, whatever it may be. I'm not sure what language it was written in. Maybe it was written in Sanskrit, because a lot of Buddhist writings are in Sanskrit. Then, what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, the works of Hermann Hesse in German, translated. I don't know if they're all impersonalists, but the only one I ever read was, and that was enough for me. I didn't like it. So that influence has continued, and now we have the whole New Age movement. Not that they introduced impersonalism. It's a disease which is always there in the psyche of the intellectual, religiously inclined human. It's there. It's just that in India it became deeply embedded in the culture. We don't find so much, if we go through Mahabharata, we don't find so much at that time, because we find lots of sacrifices going on. Although it was, well, I'm talking especially about the main body of the Mahabharata, which is, we have the introduction, Adi Parva, but then when we get to the story of the Pandavas, which constitutes most of the Mahabharata, if you include the Shanti Parva and the Anushasana Parva, which is, well, it's not exactly the story of the Pandavas being spoken to Yudhishthira, Bhishma's instructions to Yudhishthira, a massive part of Mahabharata. There's lots of sacrifice going, but they're not that much in terms of At least we don't find so. There's this description in the Adiparva of Ashtavakra, who's known as an impersonalist. But it really got systemized and propagated by Bhagavat Pad, Adi Shankaracharya. But they also call Ramanuja Bhagavat Ramanuja. Bhagavat Ramanuja. There's a difference between being Bhagavat and Bhagavat Pad. And the influence has been tremendous up to the present day. Although the Shankaracharyas aren't taken seriously as they used to be. But still, one North Indian passed away fairly recently. Apart from the four, supposed to be four, but it got reduced to three because the Badrik Ashram and Dwarka got combined. One of them passed away, and that came in the newspaper, and it was quite a big thing. But their influence has been tremendous, and that of the Vaishnavas has been tremendous also. Popular Vaishnavism, more than, at least in terms of the broad culture of India, the philosophical and cultural contributions of Ramanuja, Madhva, they're there, but it's more the popular, in Karnataka especially, the Dasakuta, the saints who sung songs in local languages mostly, Kannada, Tulu, and Ramanuja Sampradaya also. There's you find the villagers, they sing songs in local language. Vallabh is both philosophical and it's populist also, you could say. But the real influence of Rama Bhakti in North India has been through the Ramanandis. That when people think of Ramayana in North India, they don't think of Valmiki. They call it Ramayana. It's not actually called Ramayana, the Ramcharitmanas. Most of you probably don't even know what I'm talking about here. It's only the Indians. And you're not really although in Nepal the influence of Ramcharitmanas in the Terai especially has been, you know what Terai is? Okay, he knows that much. Okay. You don't know what it is because you're not, it's the flat land in Nepal, which is a continuation of the plains, North Indian plains, which borders Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, and it continues, and then the mountains start suddenly. Suddenly you hit the Himalayas. But that flat land, it's culturally very much part of North India. So the Mithila, part of Mithila is there also. Janakpur is in Nepal actually, the Janak's kingdom, it's just on the border. So that's very much influenced by Ramcharitmanas. Once you start getting in the Himalayas, then you get the Buddhist mix, especially after the Tibetans came in. But and it's all mixed up. Nepali Hinduism is, once you get in the hills, especially mixed up with Buddhism. Just like in Punjab, it's mixed up with Sikhism. Hinduism is very accommodating. So, but the influence of bhakti, very, very strong. But the thing is that when it becomes among the popular people, then and Kabir is very influential in North India also, and he's a complete atheist actually, but it comes over as bhakti. It comes over as bhakti, and but so all these influences are there. But yeah, the populist bhakti that goes to the common people, They like to sing the names of Rama and visit the holy places. Shiva is also very big in North India, and that's in Ramcharitmanas, the Shiva Bhakti, if you want to call it, and the Ram Bhakti they're brought together like that. Otherwise, there's been no great teacher or leader of Shaivism. It was big Shaivism in Kashmir way back. That's still famous today, Kashmir Shaivism. And then in the south also, in Karnataka, what's now Karnataka, the Lingayats, and then in Tamil Nadu, what do they call the Nayanmars? The Nayanmars there. That's been very big. And their influence is still there today, although the worship of Murugan seems to be the main popular religion. Now it's Ayappa and Om Shakti and who knows what else. All kinds of things going on. Chidambaram. Well, it's one place of Shiva worship. There are so many. Rameshwaram is a place of Shiva worship. Tiruvannamalai is a place, although that was actually, it's a Shiva temple. It was originally a Krishna temple, but then one of the Chola kings must have took over and converted it into a Shiva temple. There are so many. Pakshi Tirtha, Srikalahasti, that's in Andhra actually, but it's all part of it wasn't Andhra previously. Then Tanjavur, Brihadishwara temple. So many temples are there. Shiva temples. So many Vishnu temples are there. And they're not fighting each other nowadays. Why is that? Because no one cares about religion. That's why. And we find, you see in Sri Rangam, people, well, they also have smarters there, but they also come for die. There's no objection, no fight. The main religious fighting in Tamil Nadu within quote-unquote Hinduism is Tengalai versus Vadagalai. That's going on. Now you're all lost. You don't know what I'm talking about at all. They know. Do you know anything about this? Even up in Sudur, Hyderabad.
I met Sri Vaishnav Sannyasi.
Where? Where did you meet him? Oh, I see, yeah. In Hyderabad, there's that one temple there, actually, Vaikhanasa. And now they made that new thing at Shahabad. What's that? That new thing of Chinnajaya Swami has been very influential. Shangshabad. I haven't gone, I don't plan to go either. No, that's not traditional to put deities outside. Huge deities, how can you worship them? How can you... Really? Mixed up. So anyway, the point I'm making here is that although the more intellectual side hasn't been prominent as much as the populist bhakti movements, but those that's traditionally the brahmanas, from a young age they're trained. Nowadays not, because they have to go to school, the slaughterhouse school. But they're trained, first of all, in at least one Veda, and then they're trained in Siddhanta. First they're trained in a Veda, and the boys, they can be sent to anyone to learn that. For instance, the smarters may say and send a son to a Vaishnava. If he's learning a Veda, there's no philosophy per se there. Then it comes to Siddhanta. Now we do see that some Brahmin boys, they're still taught they may be taught some of the Divya Prabandhams, or they may be taught Vishnu Sahasranama, Purusha Sukta, these things. Both in the Smarta line and the Vaishnava line, but they don't teach them philosophy. Where's the time? They go to school, right? They have to learn about science and all these things at school. They don't teach them philosophy. How the Vaishnav Siddhanta was maintained, it wasn't that many, but the Brahmins were strong and they maintained that. The actual Siddhanta. While if we have populist bhakti, it all gets mixed up with impersonalism. And we see Ramanandi Sampradaya, it's all mixed up with impersonalism. And even we were talking about one Swami, they're also mixed up. They can't distinguish between what's right and what's wrong. Or even if they do know what's right and what's wrong, they think that, well, anyway, we have to go along with it because Hinduism is under attack from Christianity and Islam, so better we all stick together. There may be some justification for that. It's the Kuru Pandava Nyai is one Nyai in one logical tool in Vedic discussion. So Kurus, Pandavas are Kurus, but they're differentiated. So Prabhupada mentioned that. That when they're fighting each other, the Kurus and the Pandavas, but when they join together, then they'd be a stronger force. The thing is that the Pandavas, they didn't want to join with the Kurus because what for? They're going to support their agenda. That's why they had to go against them. They couldn't support their agenda. So it's a very dangerous thing, and we have in the broader body of Hinduism, I'm using that term because it's a conventionally used term. There's one thing that when our movement first became known in India, many people liked it, but many people also didn't like that when we say we're not Hindus. And up to the present day, there are many people who say we don't like it, we say we're not Hindus. Well, you are Hindus, you see, and every Hindus have temples, they do puja, they worship deities, they put on tilak, some of them. Everything you do is Hindu, and culturally it's true. But we want to, at the same time, distinguish ourselves from that. As Srila Prabhupada wrote it in one purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita, what is that? A hodgepodge of ideas, impersonalist ideas. So we want to distinguish ourselves. It's a delicate thing because on one hand, we do understand that it's the same culture, even impersonalists and personalists, it's the same culture. And it's the same philosophy up to the point of liberation. Prabhupada wrote that impersonalists and personalists, they both agree that this material world is a place of misery. We have to get liberated from there. And they all agree, yes, Ganga is worshipable, Guru is worshipable, cow is worshipable. They all agree on so many things. But then the nature of liberation, then we get the big divide. The impersonalists have the idea that you become one with everything, and we don't accept that. And the impersonalist philosophy becomes offensive in as much as they think that Krishna is also a product of Maya. if he's anything in this world must be a product of Maya. So he's also his pastimes are also a product of Maya. So it becomes a very sensitive thing. On the one hand, we do respect those who are actually following. There aren't that many in the impersonalist sampradaya anywhere, or even in the personalist sampradayas, the Vaishnava sampradaya. We respect for their... Chaitanya Mahaprabhu respected, he respected this Prakashananda Saraswati. They accept the Vedas. At least superficially. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also said, Vedamani abodh hoilo nastik, Vedashritya nastik yavad bodhake adik. The Buddhists are considered atheists because they don't accept the Vedas. But people who promote the same kind of philosophy under the shelter of the Vedas are worse than Buddhists. At least the Buddhists say openly, we reject the Vedas. But the impersonalists, they say they're very strong on accepting the Vedas. They fight with the Buddhists on the veracity of the Vedas, but then they don't accept the actual message of the Vedas. So anyway, I'm saying personalists, impersonalists, personalists and impersonalists. But then if we take the whole of quote-unquote Hindu culture, there's a lot more than that. There are the 6 darshans, and the personalists and the impersonalists, they come in, how many does that make? One, yeah. Uttarmimamsa. And the Purvamimamsa, or the karmis, we can say, the majority of people, they don't follow that now either. The idea of sacrifice, here we're in this verse, I'm not really talking much about the verse. The idea you have to perform sacrifices. So their idea is that you perform sacrifices. And you, what is that? Swarga para, what is that? The Vedavadarata, those who are attached to the words, the flowery words of the Vedas, they have the idea, you go to heaven, you perform sacrifice, you go to heaven, spend some time there, you'll come back, and then again you do more sacrifice, and you go up again. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, they go up, Gatagatam kama kama labhante. But the karmis, when they hear this, they think, yeah, that's right, that's what we believe. That's what we do. We go up to heaven. They say their idea, you don't have to have any philosophy. They don't identify the need to find out any philosophy. They just think you follow what's in the Vedas and you go to heaven. That's all. And that's enough philosophy for us. They're not interested in philosophy. So that's considered one of the 6 darshans, or philosophical systems, but they themselves are not, they're not so much interested. There's dharma, and you have to follow it. Atato dharma jnana in the Jaiminese Dharma Sutras. Let's find out about dharma. We know, well, all this talk of Brahma, well, there's no point. That's just for useless people who got disappointed. That's for failures, right? That's what they say. For failures, people who couldn't get ahead in the world, they drop out and become a Hare Krishna because they couldn't get ahead in the world. So that's their idea. All this talk of Brahma and all that, forget it. Let's go to heaven. Let's do something practical and be happy. Yeah. We say chant Hare Krishna and be happy. They say do some sacrifices and be happy. It says in the Vedas, you get happiness in the heavenly planets. So Let's go for it. So they have a different outlook. So in this way, we find it's rare to find someone who's interested in studying and understanding this philosophy. It's very, very rare, and it's easier to take there's that term, cherry pick from bhakti. That we like the kirtan. We like the prasadam, we don't like the philosophy. And then we'll all just chant Hare Krishna and Jai Prabhupada. And Prabhupada will smile at us and we'll all go to Golok Vrindavan. The only problem with Golok Vrindavan is there's no illicit sex up there and there's no pizzas up there. So we have to come back to the Kirtan Mela. We have to come back to this world and... I want to stay in this world birth after birth. I don't want to go back to Golok Vrindavan because Golok Vrindavan, too many rules up there. No enjoyment. When we finish the kirtan, there are other ways to enjoy also. You've got to be all-rounded, right? Don't be fanatical. All-rounded, have a big belly. All-round Vaishnavas. Progressive, that's the word, progressive, yeah. I don't know how much we're going to progress more than what Lord Chaitanya gave. That's the ultimate progression, isn't it? Yeah, it was Shankara, then Ramanuja, then Madhva, and then somewhere Vishnu Swami, and then Vallabha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, and that's the ultimate. What is there beyond that? Well, some people, they want to interpret Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Nagari Bhav, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu having relationships with the young women of Nadia, but that's rejected. That Rupa Goswami never accepts that. That's Rupa Nuga Viruddha Apasiddhanta. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the ultimate. If we want to go ultimate, higher, ultimately we come to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What he has given. That's enjoyment, but it's not mundane enjoyment. It's definitely not impersonalism. But it requires vairagya vidya nija bhakti yogam. Chaitanya shikshatam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for the purpose of teaching renunciation and clear spiritual knowledge. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya recognized this. He himself was a leader, although he was a householder, he was a leader in the Sampradaya, the Mayavadis, who very much emphasize Vairagya and Vidya, this renunciation and knowledge. So that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave prem, love of Krishna, but it's not that there's no Vairagya or Vidya. That's from us in this material world, that is required. All of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers, the 6 Goswamis, they were exemplary in Vairagya and Vidya. So that is required. Without that, the tendency to gross sense gratification will arise. And that's happened in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sampradaya. Because patra vicha nahi stana jai jahapai tare de. Premadan, the Panchatattva didn't discriminate who is eligible, who is not eligible. They just, wherever, whenever, they gave prem. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave by giving the holy names. But then it's also required to moderate that, in the sense that people have to be guided so that they don't mistake the bliss of Krishna consciousness with the mundane sensual enjoyment, or they don't try to mix the two things. That tendency is always there. So that's required. That's also one reason, or one major reason, Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish Varnashram Dharma with Brahmins at the head who can give clear spiritual guidance. If that's not there, even in what to speak of the broader society, in Vaishnav society, then it's all going to degrade. And we practically see that with emphasis on Kirtan Mela, for instance, but not on daily study of the books which Srila Prabhupada gave us. Even at the Kirtan Mela, there's not study of the books. And understanding, discriminating between what should be done and what should not be done. Without that discrimination, we become what? Demons. Pravriting cha nivriting cha jana navidur asuraha. Those who don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done, they're called demons. And that is on the basis of scripture we have to understand. So kirtan, yes, but we have to know what are the offenses against the holy name. Unless we know that, and then we're going to make offenses. And if you see, most of the offenses, they're based on ignorance of proper understanding. To think that the name of Vishnu is the same as the name of demigods, to think that one can sin on the basis of the holy name, to think that chanting is yagya, dana, vrata, tapa, it's like something else in the Vedic rituals. For it's shubha kriya, it's some auspicious activities for material enjoyment or for liberation. Most of the offenses that we'll find arthavadaha, to think that it's the glories of the holy name are exaggerated. Harinamni kalpanam, to think that it's all just some imagination. So it's all the offenses are on the basis of ignorance. Therefore we have to hear and understand and apply this in our life also. Otherwise, so many people will come along and be charismatic and chant Hare Krishna and mislead us. So we should study and understand. Srila Prabhupada, he came to preach Krishna consciousness, and the main way he did that was by distributing these books to the public. In one sense, these books are not for the public. Shukadev Goswami spoke to Parikshit specifically, who was most qualified. He was a professional politician and administrator. So you may say he's not as qualified as all the rishis who are by profession, the word profession doesn't really fit, but by vritti, by their occupation. They were full-time students and professors, students of the Vedic literature. That's what they did all their life. So in one sense you could say Parikshit wasn't as qualified. The same thing with Arjuna. He wasn't that he was ignorant. Krishna speaks about, right from the beginning of the Gita, Krishna speaks about, he uses so many words. Atma, Rita, the word Rita comes here in a different sense. Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, Krishna uses all these terms from the beginning. So Arjuna, he must have had a good background in all these things to even begin to understand it. But Arjuna and Parikshit were the proper persons to hear Gita and Bhagavatam respectively, because they were tuned into the proper understanding, they're devotional. But Bhagavatam is a highly philosophical text. It's sometimes just like what we're going through here. Highly philosophical text, which you wouldn't think it's meant for distribution to the public. But on the other hand, it is meant for everyone, because Krishna is meant for everyone. Gita is meant for everyone. It's meant specifically, Rajashayo Viduhu, for the Rajarshis, for the great leaders of men who are highly philosophical also, and highly self-controlled also. But it's meant for everyone, because everyone is meant to know Krishna. And this Bhagavatam will give light in the darkness of this Kali Yuga. So it might seem that, what are people going to understand if they read this? Read the purport. You give this set of books to someone, they open it up. Lord Brahma, the creator of the cosmic manifestation, is known as Swayambhu, or one who is born without father and mother. And he's lost immediately. When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord, Mahavishnu, or the great person, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead. We need guiding through it when we first join the movement, what to speak of. But it will have its effect, and we see that. It's hard to understand. Prabhupada said, I'm blindly following my Guru Maharaj in the sense of having these books. And Srila Prabhupada was in ecstasy to hear about the book distribution. Nothing enlivened him more. And it has its effect. It has its effect. Some devotees say, now what's the use? Better you go out and you meet people and talk with them about environmentalism and get them to chant and this and that. But it doesn't have the power of Bhagavatam, of Prabhupada's books. Krishna is personally present in these books. He is these books. And Srila Prabhupada wanted them distributed. And we should distribute them. And then people come. We had that experience in England sometimes. We were distributing Prabhupada's books. And then we'd meet somebody and say, well, I got one of your books. And I tried to read it, but I couldn't understand it. And then you explain it to them simply. And they say, oh yeah, okay, now I understand. So they need personal contact also. But books are the basis, and we shouldn't... If we don't have the books, if we don't put the books in the center, then we're going to get into all kinds of speculations and easy, watered down Krishna consciousness. I gave some historical examples how things get watered down without proper philosophy. And needs people also, generation after generation, to imbibe this and teach this. I was talking about brahmanas who maintain their philosophy, but they're taught philosophy on the basis of books, right? What's going on? Got a break there? They're taught philosophy on the basis of books. For the Madhvas, the Nyaya Suddha is compulsory. The study of its delineation of Madhva's philosophy on the strong basis of logic. And for us, it's Srila Prabhupada's books. Jiva Goswami made his Shat Chandarbhas, and whatever's taught in there is taught in Srila Prabhupada's books. It systematically goes, point by point. But it's all the same thing. Well, the Shat Chandarbhas, first of all, the Tattva Sandarbha established. Srimad Bhagavatam is the ultimate truth which we require for Kali Yuga. That is required now. Then what's the next one? There is the Paramatma. Is that the next one? Bhagavad Sandarbha. Krama Sandarbha is all of them put together, because he takes so many quotes from the Bhagavatam, and they're practically so. It's all the Sandarbhas taken apart and put in his. Then he established Paramatma Sandarbha. He doesn't discuss about Brahman, impersonal Brahman. So if you want to know about that, go and see Shankaracharya. Then Paramatma Sandarbha, then Bhagavad Sandarbha. Then there's Tattva Sandarbha, there's Paramatma, then there is Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then there is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And ultimately then there's Bhakti Sandarbha, how to practice, and then Priti Sandarbha. So we have 4 on Sambandha, 1 on Abhideya, and 1 on Prayojan. So it's all, but everything's there in Srila Prabhupada's books. So we should study them and distribute them and teach them. And if you have time, inclination, there are so many other things we can read also. Prabhupada said, right in the beginning of Bhagavatam, he says, you can study the commentaries, and he gives a whole big list. Who's going to read so many things in their life? There may be some specialists, there should be specialist scholars of Krishna consciousness, but for most of us, even if we can read all of Srila Prabhupada's, but it's not that, I read it, I read all of Prabhupada's, okay, finished. Okay, what's next? It was so enthusiastic, but there's so much. Just like I was saying the other day, we read it, okay, then we come back and read it again, and then we find there's more, and it just goes on like that because Krishna is unlimited. And I'm not going to take questions because a bit tight on time. Hare Krishna. Finish there. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu evacha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dante nitaya churnakang padayone pantakrit vachaka kushatameta. Hey sadhava sakala Chaitan Gauranga Chandra Charne Gurudana.
His Holiness Bhakti Swami Maharaj ki jai.